Good morning all. I hope that this week has been useful for you all to understand the basics of industrial biotechnology, the types of the culture. Yesterday we discussed about sterilization kinetics, what are various methods of sterilization, continuous sterilization, batch sterilization, and we also discussed that whether you talk about growth or you talk about death, both follow first order kinetics. And we can relate both the specific growth rate and death constant with the Arrhenius equation within terms of activation energy. So moving ahead, once your basics are built up, we will see that what are different kind of the industrial enzymes and how they are applied. So this presentation, this topic of today is dedicated to the significance of all these enzymes. Basic thing is that you are using a microbe to produce the enzymes. So you have to see these properties before selecting the microbial strains. They should have high yield in a shortest amount of time. Their production should not lead to toxic byproducts. Only the required product should be produced. And to make it economically feasible, the microbe should be growing on the cheap nutrients. The substrate quality, which is not even of that good quality, that high quality, should be able to be utilized by the microbe. Because industry looks in terms of the economic prospect, that how much we are putting in the substrate cost and what is the product cost generated on that substrate. So when we are selecting the microbes, we have to keep into mind these four parameters, that they should have the ability to grow on the cheap substrates, they should give high yield in the shortest time, and while producing the microbes, we prefer to have extracellular enzymes rather intracellular, because processing the intracellular enzymes will require more energy and more techniques to be embedded. I will discuss about it. What is the protocol for if we have an intracellular enzyme, and what is the protocol if we have an extracellular enzyme as a product. Okay, now what are enzymes? Enzymes are the proteins which act as a catalysis for all the biological reactions. They are the ones who convert the reactions, who convert the substrate into product. They are the catalysis of the entire chemical reactions. So based on the role, we classify the enzymes into oxidoreductases. What do I mean by this? Oxidoreductases are those enzymes which do either oxidation reaction or reduction reaction. Reduction is addition of hydrogen or removal of oxygen. Oxidation is addition of oxygen and removal of hydrogen. We all know this concept. So the enzymes which are involved based on their functions, we have classified the enzymes in these category. I will show you one by means of annotation. So oxidoreductases we just discussed, that these are the enzymes which catalyze either the oxidation reaction or reduction reaction. What are transferases? Transferases are those enzymes which are involved in the transport of essential ions and minerals from one site in the cell to another site. Like we need to transport sodium, we need to transport potassium in and out of the cell. So this is done by the transferases. Also in the metabolic pathways, transferases are involved in transferring hydrogen ion from one molecule to another. Then we have another category known as lyases. Lyases are the enzymes which are involved in the lytic reactions, which are involved in the breakdown of a complex product into simple products. We have isomerases. Isomerases are those enzymes which are the isomers of the basic form, L and D form, and they catalyze the reactions in the same manner as the original species does. Talking about the ligation reaction. Ligation means when two things have to be ligated into one product. When you want to add up two molecules, there you have a role of ligases. Talking about the source of enzymes, what are the various sources? So we can use animals, plants, or microbes. These three kinds are my main source of the enzymes. So amylase diastase was the first fungal enzyme which was discovered, and it is used for curing the digestive disorders, if your stomach gets upset or your gut is having any problem. So, and why we use the name Teka diastase? Because he was a scientist, Teka, who had discovered this enzyme. So amylase Teka diastase is the first fungal enzyme used for digestive disorders. Now, examples of enzymes in industry, I will discuss a detailed application in my further slides. But here I have just given you an example of 4 type of the enzymes. Proteases, the enzymes which can break down the protein, they are known as proteases. And proteases, since you know the food that we consume is having a lot of starch, is having complex molecules of proteins. So we need to incorporate such enzymes which have the tendency to break down the protein and to break down the starch and remove the stains from our clothes. So when you see now that we have eaten something like a lot of vegetables we eat, and when we spoil our clothes by those, then we wash them in the detergents, and detergents are able to clean the stains. Why they're able to clean? Because they have got these enzymes. Proteases are there in the detergents, amylases are there. So these have the role that they break down the proteins, and amylases they break down the starch. And amylases are of different kinds. I'll discuss in my next slides. So amylases again, like proteases, they break down proteins and are part of the detergent industry. Similarly, amylases, they break down the starch, they process the starch, and they also form a part of detergent industry. Talking about one more form of amylases, glucose isomerase, it is used in producing all the soft drinks. You drink fruity. Fruity is having high amount of a sweetener, so that is done by using glucose isomerase. Now talking about the dairy industry, we like to eat cheese a lot. So microbial renin, this renin is also secreted in human beings, but we isolate the renin from microbes, and this renin is used for production of cheese. I'll go to more detailed processes. Okay, just let me remove it so that I can move ahead. The markings. So we need to produce all these enzymes by using microbes in fermentation industry. And we have discussed what are the basic requirements of fermentation. I will further elaborate it that fermentation can be carried out in 2 modes. Either we can use solid state fermentation or we can use submerged fermentation. What do I mean by solid state fermentation and what do I mean by submerged fermentation? Solid state fermentation is also known as the solid substrate culture. Here I will give you example of the mushrooms. Mushroom is cultivated on the surface of the solid products. So whenever you are growing something, if this is my substrate S, and whenever I'm growing something like this is my product, we are cultivating it on the surface of the solid product. So this is known as solid state fermentation. We are not having our substrate in the liquid form. We are not having the microbe. We are not having the media dissolved in the liquid format. So when we are producing something on the solid surface, on the entire surface of a solid substrate, that is known as solid state fermentation. Cultivation of mushroom is a good example of solid state fermentation. Even cheese production also. Cheese production also happens in solid state fermentation mode. So when we discuss about the products, we should be clear that whether this particular product is going to be made in batch mode, fed batch mode, continuous mode, and whether we are going to adopt submerged mode or we are going to adopt solid state fermentation. So industrial processes have to be defined in terms of the type of culture and in terms of type of mode of fermentation. So basically we carry out in 2 modes, solid state fermentation. In short, you will see that in research papers, it is written SSF, and you can carry in submerged fermentation mode. Submerged means liquid culture. Our media will be, as I was showing in previous lectures of mine, we have got huge fermenters. In these fermenters, we dissolved our media in the liquid form, the liquid media, which could be Luria broth, PDA broth, YPD broth. And this media is getting inoculated with the microbe. The media which is sterilized, we inoculate it with the microbe, leave it for incubation time in the controlled conditions of temperature and pH, and then we get the product. So this mode, liquid culture and then inoculating, this mode is known as submerged fermentation. It is not a solid media where we are doing on the substrate. So I hope it is clear that fermentation processes for industrial production are carried in two ways: solid state fermentation and submerged fermentation. And you, as in the previous slide, the substrates should have carbon, nitrogen, water. So cheaper sources of carbon are used in the industry, like wheat bran, rice bran, cereal meal with minerals and salts. We are not using pure forms like sucrose and dextrose and YPD. In the lab scale, you can use the pure forms, YPD broth, yeast extract broth. But in the industry, we go for these substrates: cane molasses, wheat bran, soybean meal, rice bran as the substrates for getting the products. Let's move on to the next portion. So once I have made my enzymes, either by solid state fermentation or by submerged fermentation, I need to categorize whether the enzyme which I want to produce, is it an intracellular enzyme or is it an extracellular enzyme? What do I mean by intracellular? By intracellular enzymes, I mean those enzymes which are made within the cell, which are made inside the microbial cells. So if the enzymes are present within the microbial cells after the fermentation, I need to take it out from the cell. How do I take it out? I take it out by using these methods. We can use mechanical methods whereby we homogenize the cells under high pressure so that the cells break down, or you can use agitator, or you can use ultrasonic treatment to break the cells. So first we need to break the cells to extract out our intracellular enzyme, and that we do by enzymatic methods. Second is you can use enzymatic methods, but this is used after chemical. Second one is my chemical methods, after mechanical methods. I can treat my cells with these chemicals: alcohols, ethanol, methanol, isopropanol, or polymers like PEG, polyethylene glycol. These are the chemical methods for breaking down my cell and extracting intracellular. After using mechanical and chemical method, I can go for the enzymatic methods of breakdown, and xylanases are classical example which are used for the breakdown. Then we know that our enzyme is having a proteinaceous nature, so I should use the chemicals sodium sulfate and ammonium sulfate. What will happen? I will show, or I can use the NaCl for precipitating my proteins, for getting my entire enzyme concentrated. So I'll write on the screen, there is a typical method for precipitating the proteins, which is known as salting out technique. And this is very important in industry to precipitate. Rather than this, text should be used. Okay. I hope you're seeing my screen. So we use salting out technique in industry for precipitating proteins. Enzymes are proteins. We use high concentration of salt here. Now you should ask me, ma'am, how does the high concentration of salt like NaCl helps in salting out? See, what happens to students is that our proteins are made up of amino acids, and amino acids have all the nature. Either they can be acidic, they can be basic, or they can be neutral. So these proteins, these amino acids which are forming the proteins, they are into two categories. We have hydrophilic amino acids. Hydrophilic means water loving, and we have hydrophobic amino acids. So hydrophilic amino acids, as they love water, so they form bond with the water and they get dissolved. So proteins are present in the water in the dissolved form because they have hydrophilic groups, and these hydrophilic groups form hydrogen bonds with the water, and that is why the protein is existing in the solvent as a dissolved particle. But it has also got hydrophobic patches. So these hydrophobic patches only are exposed when you reduce the concentration of water. So what happens is that when we add a salt in a solvent having protein, so that salt has more affinity towards water molecule. So the salt will form bonds with the water molecule. As a result of that, the number of water molecules left free to interact with the hydrophilic amino acids of the proteins reduce in number. Due to reduction of the water molecule, now most of the proteins have hydrophobic patches exposed, and one protein instead of these different protein molecules which are dissolved in the water, now since the water is occupied with the salt, it has formed the bond with the salt. So these protein molecules now form bonds with each other, they do hydrophobic interactions, and as a result of that they form a precipitate, and now they come out of the solvent. So salting out technique is a very good technique to precipitate all the proteins. What we are doing here is that we are reducing the number of water molecules, because water molecule is going and forming bond with the salt now. And we are letting the hydrophobic patches of the protein molecules to be exposed, so that different molecules can now interact and form a clump and they get precipitated. I hope it's clear now. Now let's move ahead. There are also protein nucleic acids. So for nucleic acid precipitation, we use these particular chemicals: manganese salts, streptomycin sulfate, protamine sulfate. I'll come to a detailed flow chart. This was only for intracellular I was discussing, where the things are getting synthesized inside the cell. So this is my flow chart. Let me remove this extra S. Okay. So that process which I just discussed, that was for my intracellular enzyme, this flowchart. So if we are having the enzymes which are secreted inside the cell, these are the typical steps. We have the fermentation process. In this fermentation process, we had added our media, inoculated with the microbe, let it at particular temperature and pH for incubation time. After the incubation time and production time, the production takes place. Now I have got a fermentation broth having my microbe and my product. The product is extracellular, that means it is getting secreted outside the cells, so it is present in the liquid media. So we do centrifugation to remove, to get all the cell pellets settled. So from these cell pellets, now I should go for the cell lysis. As I told you, homogenizers can be used. Then we take the intracellular fraction, precipitate out the protein from it using salting out technique, and then go for the purification. Purification can be by means of affinity chromatography, by means of GC, HPLC. So mainly we use different kind of the ultracentrifugation and different kind of the chromatographic techniques to make a purified protein. After a purified fraction, we go for the lyophilization to pack the protein. Lyophilization is the freeze drying technique where you remove all the water molecules and you get your product in the powdered form. So these are the steps for extraction of the intracellular enzyme. However, if it was an extracellular enzyme, it is very easy. You are having the enzyme in the broth itself. You don't need to homogenize. You don't need to break down the cells. You don't need to go for the homogenization. Simply you have to take the supernatant, precipitate your protein, and go for the purification and go for packaging. So after precipitation from the supernatant, we have to purify it using chromatography. Affinity chromatography is the most applied chromatography for protein purification, followed by the packaging. In packaging, we use crystallization and lyophilization methods. Okay. Now let's see, after we have extracted and purified our enzymes, I will talk about different kind of the enzymes. So in the previous slide, I told you about amylases, proteases, renin. So what are amylases? Amylases are the enzymes which break down the starch, and they are used in food industry as well as in detergent industry. So we have different kind of the amylases: alpha amylases, beta amylases, glucoamylases, glucose isomerases. And these amylases, if I talk about their nature, they are extracellular, they get produced in the broth, and they have the feature to break down the starch by hydrolyzing these bonds. 1,4 glycosidic bonds between different carbohydrate moieties. And they have a role, alpha amylases, they categorize, they catalyze sacharogenic reactions. I further explained what are various bacteria and fungus. You need to remember some of them, that if I want to produce alpha amylase, just now we learned that it's a extracellular enzyme. So if I want to produce using bacteria, I should use Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus cereus, Bacillus amyloliquefaciens, or Bacillus licheniformis, Arthrobacter. Or if I want to use the fungus, then Aspergillus oryzae, Penicillium cephalosporium, Mucor, Candida, Neurospora, all these species can be used. So whenever we are talking about the enzyme production, we should be very clear which bacteria produces which enzyme and what is the mode of production. So mode of production, it is mainly produced by batch or fed batch. And now the question comes, in the batch mode, we had discussed that we have growth associated products, which are known as primary metabolites. We have mixed growth associated products, and we have non-growth associated products. Non-growth associated products are also called as secondary metabolites. So now when you know that, yes, it can be made in batch mode, which is a closed culture, or fed batch mode, and you know it's an extracellular enzyme having the potential to break down starch by working on the 1,4-glycosidic bonds, you should be able to tell me which is the phase, in what phase of the growth curve this enzyme gets secreted. So normally it is seen that alpha amylase is not produced in the log phase when the growth is very high. It is produced when the growth rate decreases and spore formation begins. That means this, when the cells are shifting from log phase to stationary phase, there comes a deceleration phase. And also when the cells are shifting from lag to log, if you remember, there I had told you we have the acceleration phase. So it is when the growth rate is slow, then my alpha amylase production takes place. I have mentioned the media. What is the media for alpha amylase production by Bacillus subtilis? You can use starch, ammonium nitrate, sodium citrate, potassium hydrophosphate, all these are used. And you can see that basic composition of the media means a carbon source should be there to make carbohydrates, a nitrogen source should be there to make amino acids and then proteins, essential ions, potassium and sodium should be there, water should be there, oxygen should be there. So this media having all these things is a combination of carbon, nitrogen and essential ions in water. Maximum production temperature for alpha amylase is 37 to 45 degree, and we get it after 18 hours. Now let's talk about the proteases. Proteases are the enzymes which break down the proteins and are applied in detergent industry, pharmaceuticals, leather, protein, food industry, waste processing industry, and just like alpha amylase, we can use both bacteria and fungus. Now I will tell you that proteases are further classified into 3 types: alkaline proteases, acid proteases, and neutral proteases based on their optimum pH requirements. At what pH their growth occurs best. So if the growth rate is occurring in the range 1 to 7, it is an acid protease. If the growth rate is occurring in the pH of 7, because that's a neutral pH, those proteases are neutral proteases. And similarly for the alkaline, their pH requirement is above 7. So I have classified the, I hope you learned that proteases are extracellular enzymes. They are used in these industries, detergent, pharmaceuticals, and based on the pH optimum, I can classify my proteases as acid, alkaline, and neutral. Again, I have mentioned that for alkaline proteases, we can use these strains: Bacillus licheniformis, amyloliquefaciens, Megatherium. And if I have to go for the fungus, I can use these fungus: Streptomyces fradis, Streptomyces graecosus, Aspergillus niger, Aspergillus flavus. And best known proteases which work in the industry, alkaline proteases, are serine proteases. Again, talking about the production method, in the lab, we do it in shake flask batch culture conditions in a small fermenter at a temperature of 30 to 37. For the amylase, I told you it is still 45, we get good production. But for protease, we get good production till 37. And fed batch mode is mainly applied. If you remember, in the amylase I just told you, we go for batch and fed batch. But for protease, we prefer to have fed batch mode. And duration is 48 to 72 hours. And mainly my enzymes protease are marketed in the microencapsulated form. Neutral proteases, as I told you, they grow in the neutral pH environment. Bacillus cereus, Bacillus megaterium, these are the species which produce my neutral proteases. And it has been seen that these proteases, if we increase the temperature, they are not very stable and they get inactivated in the alkaline environment. And neutral proteases, if I talk the type of proteases which are used most in leather and food industry, so they are the neutral proteases, not the acid and alkaline ones. So these industries, leather and food industry, have maximum usage of neutral proteases. Similarly, pectinases. Pectinases are a group of the enzymes which hydrolyze pectin, and they are used, they are cultivated in submerged and solid state mode. And the fungus which is used for production of pectinases is Aspergillus niger and Aspergillus venti. And these pectinases, they have a role that they are used for clarifying the fruit juices and vegetable juices. So all the pulps that you must be, having a lot of juices which have pulp. So that all clarification, that all is done by pectinases. I have made a huge list here to show you all in just what are various industrial enzymes and their applications, so that you can see in one slide. So proteases, they degrade proteins and are used in detergents. Cellulases, they see all the enzymes are named based on their substrate. Students, you need to remember, like the category which I was telling you in my first slide, that my enzymes are classified into oxidoreductases, isomerases, lysases. Based on the functions they do, they have been categorized in those classification, but their naming, their nomenclature of these enzymes is on the basis of the substrate that they use. So proteases, they work on the degradation of the proteins and are applied in detergents. Similarly, cellulases, they degrade cellulose and are used in detergents. Lipases, they degrade fats into fatty acids and glycerol, and they're used in detergent industry. Amylases, they degrade a starch into simple sugars and are into various categories: alpha amylases, beta amylases, glucoisomerases. So these different type of amylases, alpha, beta, and gluco, they are used in the starch processing and detergent industry. Talking about the animal feed, we use those enzymes which improve the quality of nutrients and which we improve the digestion. So talking about the digestion, you can see proteases. Proteases also have the property to improve the digestion because they break down the proteins. So in the formulation of the animal feed in the industry, we use these three enzymes: xylanases, phytases, and proteases. Because phytases, they improve the nutrient availability, and proteases, they help in the degradation. Similarly, in the paper and pulp industry, we use xylanases because they have the tendency to break down lignin. Lignin is a very complex molecule having cellulose, hemicellulose. So xylanases have this property to break down the lignin and expose the hemicellulose fibers. So xylanases are used in paper and pulp. Similarly, for the vegetable and food clarification, we can use pectinases and we can use arabinases, polygalacturonase. And in the gas and oil industry, we use hydrolases because they break down the complex polymers. So you can have a look from here that what are various enzymes and what are their applications. I'll go to now one case study showing my own research paper, which is citric acid production. I talked about enzymes. Now I will talk about the industrially important products. I have taken the example of citric acid and lipases here. What is citric acid? You eat a lot of lemons, a lot of oranges, citric fruits, and we say that yes, it is good for our health. Why? Because they have got citric acid. Citric acid, talking in terms of the chemical composition, it is 2-hydroxy 1,2,3-propane tricarboxylic acid, and it is found in maximum of the plant and animal tissues. It is produced by the industry in capacity of tons and tons. This organic acid has many commercial uses. It is used as a preservative, it is used as a powerful cleansing agent, it is used in the cosmetic products. I have shown you one slide so that you can have a look. So this 2-hydroxy 1,2,3-propane tricarboxylic acid, which is the chemical nature of citric acid. How it is formed, where it is isolated. It is isolated from lemon juice. And as a naturally occurring intermediate, it is found in the Krebs cycle. It is normally non-toxic, and it has a property to be used in food industry, confectionery, beverages, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and industrial. So you can see that 75% uses of citric acid is in food industry and beverage industry. On an average, we are producing 270,000 tons worldwide every year. Citric acid is a mixed growth associated product which is made in the acceleration and deacceleration phase of the batch growth. So we can produce citric acid from these fungus, Aspergillus niger, Aspergillus venti, or bacteria. We can use Bacillus licheniformis, Arthrobacter paraffinans, or we can use yeast for making citric acid. I want to show you my research paper where we had worked on the production of this. So this is a paper back in 2016. One group of my students in ILMCT had worked on the production of citric acid from Aspergillus niger. You can see, so what we did here is that as I was telling you, is that batch and fed batch mode is preferred. So we had isolated Aspergillus niger, which is a fungus, from different sources. We had taken coconut and we have taken rotten onion to extract. When you see a black mold, you must have seen that on the potato, if you keep it for a lot of days, there is a growth occurring on the outside. So that is known as a black mold, and that is the source of Aspergillus niger. Similarly, it happens with onion also. When onions and coconut, they start rotting. I will show you my paper. Then you get a black composition on the outside. So that black moldy feature, that's Aspergillus niger. So we need to first take the sample from there, from coconut or from rotten onion or from rotten potato, put it on PDB media. Like for E. coli, we can use, it's a bacteria. Like for E. coli, in the previous days, we have been discussing that we can use nutrient broth or we can use luria broth. Similarly, for Aspergillus niger's growth, we need media known as potato dextrose agar or potato dextrose broth. PDB or PDA media can be used. So we had taken these three sources, and let me show you the paper. I'll go to the paper. Okay. So these are the sources: coconut, lemon, and onion we had taken for extracting Aspergillus niger, and the broth which we had used was potato dextrose broth for growing it, for extracting it. After making an optimum concentration, what we did is that the standard media for production of citric acid is Zipac dox. We know that yes, we get good amount of citric acid in Zipac dox. You see substrate use. So one standard media we had taken, that was Zipac dox, and along with that we wanted to experiment that cane molasses and orange peel. How much amount of citric acid we can get from these cheap and easily available, because orange, once you eat, the peels are left. So we had taken the peels, we had powdered it, and at different pH and temperature, we inoculated this Zipac dox, cane molasses, and orange peels with the A. niger. We had varied the pH range from 1 to 5, and then we came out to the conclusion that at acidic pH, you can look at this table. Let me remove the lines. Okay. So we had, you can see here, we had varied the temperature from the range 20 to 50 and pH 1 to 5. And after a particular time, we had seen what is the dry weight and wet weight of citric acid, which is produced. So our conclusion was that maximum production, you know, Zipacox is a pure media, that will give maximum. But when we compared cane molasses and our orange peel, we came to the conclusion that maximum citric acid production can occur at a pH of 2 and at a temperature of 30 degree in the orange peel. I will show you in the results. See, here you can very easily see is that at the pH of, we are getting maximum 51% citric acid at a temperature of 30. Why it is happening? Because for Aspergillus, this is the best temperature to grow. So when the growth rate is high for the required, for the respective microbe, you will get good amount of the product. So this is very important that when we talk about the production, the pH and temperature and the media composition have to be taken care of. I'll move on to the next slides now and stop sharing this. Okay. The tricky part is that after producing your citric acid, you have to purify it. You know, purifying the citric acid is not that easy. I mean, because it's produced in the form of the carbohydrates. What you do here is that you react your citric acid. You have to use, this is the purification that I have discussed in my slide, that the citric acid which you have produced in the broth after submerged fermentation, you need to add calcium carbonate. This calcium carbonate will react with the citric and it will form citric carbonate. And then you have to add sulfuric acid to precipitate it. After adding the sulfuric acid, the citric acid comes in pure form and you can easily extract. So these two chemicals need to be added, calcium carbonate and sulfuric acid. I've shown you the flow chart of the citric acid which we had used in our experiment. Aspergillus niger strain, which is also known as black mold, that was taken, that was isolated from onion and potato. Then we growed it in PDA media for 7 days. We took Zipacox culture after 7 days of inoculation of A niger. इससे हमने seed culture लिया and we inoculated in the standard production media of citric acid, which is Zipacox. And we left it for incubation for 7 days. After 7 days, we went for the filtration and purification, just like the way I told you, by adding calcium carbonate and sulfuric acid. And then we quantified how much amount of citric acid is produced. The quantification of the citric acid was done by titration. We had used sodium hydroxide to titrate and find out what is the concentration of the citric acid. Now, these are the factors when you are producing the citric acid. These factors affect the production rate. What is the nitrogen source? What is the pH? How much amount of aeration you are supplying? What are the trace elements that you have added? And the temperature. So our conclusion was that at a pH of 1 and temperature of 30 degree, maximum citric acid was produced on orange molasses. We had varied the pH as well as temperature to just get a finding that at what conditions we should do the citric acid production. So these 5 factors, nitrogen source, pH, aeration, trace elements and temperature, they affect the citric acid production. And this is about the application part again, that 70% production of 1.5 million tons per year of citric acid is used in food and beverage industry. Similarly, 20% is used in the pharmaceutical industry to preserve the vitamins. There is one more case study. We have done production of lipases. What are lipases? Lipases are the enzymes which break down fats into fatty acids and glycerol, right? So we chemically we say that it is triacyl glycerol acyl hydrolase. They are the enzymes which catalyze the hydrolysis and synthesis of ester formed from glycerol and long chain fatty acids. Applications and the microbes which are used for the lipase production, we can use these fungus, C. rugosa, C. antarctica, for producing the lipase, or we can use these bacteria, Penicillium alkaligenes, P. mendocina for, and you can see the applications that if you are using a fungus, C. rugosa, then the produced lipase is going to be used for the organic synthesis. If we are producing from P. alkaligenes, it is going to be used as a detergent additive. So this you need to remember, that which is the fungus and what is the application. Again, we had a paper, we had taken oil contaminated, the very important aspect is that when you're trying to make lipase, then you have to use a oil. You have to use either, most of the people, they go for using olive oil or groundnut oil for extracting the microbe which is having the capability to produce lipase. So in our case, we had taken the oil contaminated soil sites from various places, from petrol pumps, from places near hotel industry, and we had isolated the microbes, because these are the places, these are the soil sites which are heavily contaminated with the oil. So they must have some microbes naturally occurring which are degrading that oil. So we had find out that there are Staphylococcus and Aspergillus species present in these oil contaminated soil, which can produce the lipase. Detailed paper I don't want to discuss, it will become too much for you. Citric acid I have discussed. And these are the applications, that how do we use lipases. We use them for the removal of the oil. We use them in beverage industry. We use them in meat for flavor development. We use them in cosmetics for synthesis, leather industry, paper, and cleaning. You can go through the slide. What are the various applications? So thank you, students. Thank you so much. If you have any queries, I'll be happy to take up now, or you can write to me.